But a question remained. What were the secret instructions for an outstanding D&D campaign that were missing in the official rulebooks? What were the elements that were missing in published campaigns that we were able to find? What was the secret sauce that took our sessions to an even greater level of entertainment than the movies and TV shows and books we loved? In other words, how did the magic happen? Hello and welcome to the Deep Dice Press, an indie publisher focused on developing D&D products for GMs and players who love storytelling and role-playing. Our products use the full IP and content of the core rulebooks and all other official D&D publications, and are extensively play-tested with our regular D&D groups. If you're interested in the content of this video and would like to know more about it, click on the link on the description below to download for free our booklet, Make Your Characters' Backstories Matter. If you find this content helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on the bell to receive notifications of new videos with similar content. You can also find the links for our social media on the description down below. If you want to check out a module where we apply all concepts discussed in this channel, look out for our new campaign, The Kingdom of Cormyr, One Purple Raven, available this summer. So that's what we're going to talk about in this video. First of all, we'll talk about the core element of any good story in any media, emotionality. We'll discuss why it's so important, how hard it is to make it happen in a D&D campaign and why, and how the D&D rulebooks provide little support for that. Then, we'll share how we decided we would take our homebrew campaign in a different direction compared to published campaigns, and what were the 4 guidelines we applied to build it. Finally, we'll tell you how that journey not only opened our minds, but also allowed us to learn and translate to D&D important storytelling techniques that are often left behind when creating adventures, and how those techniques brought significant impact to our gameplay experience. So, join us, won't you? I was 12 years old when I started playing Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition in 1995, all the way back there. It had been more than a year since I had first played Hero Quest, and then First Quest, and finally Dungeons & Dragons, the classic black box with the huge red dragon on it. I immediately fell in love with this realm of heroic deeds and fantastic creatures, but since the very first time that I created the elf siblings, Sean and Jean Elventry, him, a ranger, her, a wizard, I knew that most than anything else, I loved the role-playing and storytelling elements of D&D. While I do enjoy, even today, to match wits with the DM on combat tactics or to explore whichever imaginary world we're in, nothing beats, to me, role-playing and storytelling. And I've always tried to fit into groups with those common interests. Along my life as a DM and as a player, I've had outstanding sessions and campaigns, and others that have not been that much exciting, let's put it that way. I couldn't tell what it was, but at campaigns and sessions like that, I know that something was missing. And that something was preventing us from having a great time reaching a full potential at role-playing and storytelling in D&D. Time went by, and a few years ago, when I started playing D&D again, the question really stuck with me. What, all said and done, makes a D&D campaign good at role-playing and storytelling? So I put some time and effort on it to find the answer, and that's what I wanted to share with you here. What makes a D&D campaign good at role-playing and storytelling? The core of any story, no matter whether films, series, book, or your D&D campaign, is emotionality. The answer is a very simple idea, but with a challenging execution. Think about the last film or series that you loved to watch. Not any one, but one that you actually loved. When you were walking out of the cinema, or when the ending credits started to roll on your TV, you were feeling different. If it was a great action or fantasy film, you were probably feeling very excited. If it was a good romance or comedy, you were probably feeling a silly joy or happiness. Or if it was a dance drama or thriller, you were probably a bit introspective, still reflecting about the things you had just watched. Why does that happen? It happens because for a couple of hours, you were completely immersed into that story. You were put aside from the daily troubles we face and forgot about your cell phone or any other distractions at the surroundings to invest your full attention towards the story. And because you were so immersed, all the situations and feelings the characters of that story were going through were powerfully transferred into you. You felt the rush, the anger, the surprise, the relief, and the satisfaction along with those characters. And the fact that this story made you feel all those feelings made you love it. We're so used to feel this that we don't stop to think about it. But it's some kind of magic, isn't it? What makes us feel this immersion? Why do we feel those emotions along with those characters? And how do we apply that to our D&D campaign? Is that even possible? Yes, it is. It didn't make sense to us that our group wouldn't get as much excited with our D&D sessions as we would with our favorite movies, TV shows, or books. Of course, it could have been poor DMing or a group of players that for some reason simply didn't work out together. But we were an experienced group of players and we knew to sort those out. We knew they were not the case. We enjoy playing D&D even more than we enjoy watching or reading a good story. How could our D&D sessions not get more exciting then? It didn't make any sense to us. There's simply different means of telling stories. How come the one in which we get to tell our own story together as a group would not reach the same level of excitement in the first place? It became clear for us that something was not right. Better saying, something was not as good as it could be regarding the role-playing and storytelling parts of those D&D campaigns. We could not really tell exactly what, but we knew something was out of place. And that's when we started to look for whatever was available in the D&D books regarding role-playing and storytelling. Where, in the Dungeon Master's Guide, can we find instructions for building an outstanding campaign? Nowhere, I'm afraid. Every time that I, as a Dungeon Master, get the feeling that something might be missing in our adventures, I get right back to the basics and have a good readout of the Dungeon Master's Guide. And I never regret it. Man, what a great book. Contrary to the other two core books, whose structure remained very similar throughout every D&D edition, the DM's Guide has changed a lot almost every new edition until it finally reached its current structure. Its emphasis has clearly shifted from rules to best practices for creating great adventures. This may have caused some people to view it only as a nice-to-have book. For me, it is far from that. If you and your group are inclined into world building and storytelling, I would highly recommend to check it out, as it provides very helpful content for those elements. Having said all that, the Dungeon Master Guide talks a lot about world building, creating adventures, encounters and NPCs, but doesn't have much content on campaign development. Neither do Xanatar's and Tasha's expanded rulebooks. I guess everything is just too much to cover after all. Even when the DM's Guide talks about campaigns, it focuses on campaign events and adventure links. D&D rulebooks do not bring any advice on how to create outstanding campaign storytelling. Even when we consider the player character side of the question, the Player's Handbook chapter on personality and background is the core part of the book for those who value role-playing, and the This Is Your Life session in the Xanatar's Guide is a useful and delightful read. But none of those books discuss how to leverage a character backstory to create impactful plots in your campaign, and the positive effects it brings to player engagement and immersion. That's why we decided we would figure out by ourselves what would be good practice for great D&D campaign storytelling and character building. What do we want for our homebrew campaign? A story full of surprises. That's where we started. It didn't take long for us to come up with 4 clear directions. Number 1, we wanted a low fantasy game. In other words, we wanted a campaign where standing up and being heroic mattered, but not in a traditional good versus evil trope. We wanted less mystical evil enemies and more power struggle. We wanted no clear villains, rather, we wanted prominent NPCs with their own agenda. We wanted the moral conflicts of war, and we wanted mysteries and intrigues. We wanted a story with multiple layers, which we would unveil session after session, and that could go in unpredictable directions. We wanted our campaign to build up tension, and we wanted players to keep second guessing in expectation whatever could come next. Number 2, we wanted characters' backstories to be directly tied into the main campaign story. So, I laid out some plot lines I had drafted in the spirit of what we had agreed upon for our campaign, and we sat down as a group and created not each player's individual characters, but rather backstories for 12 different characters, all of them tied into the main campaign plotlines. We then established that any player could pick and choose any of the characters we had created together. Number 3, we had another group session now to develop allies and NPCs for our main characters. We wanted each of the characters to have at least 2 relevant NPCs for them, regardless of how they would be related. We made sure the NPCs would be tied into the characters so that the PCs' backstories would come to the front stage of the campaign every time they would meet. We also wanted the NPCs to be related to the main campaign plot lines. And finally, we wanted NPCs to have relationships with more than one player character whenever possible. We ended up with 26 recurring NPCs that would show up at multiple points along the campaign. Number 4, by this time, we had developed plenty of material to take the campaign plot lines even deeper. I had one last job as a DM, to make sure everything would come out as unpredictably as possible. Our adventures needed to develop in surprising yet believable ways. I had to make sure the players would think about 3 possible different outcomes for each plotline, only to be surprised by a 4th outcome and realize its cues were right there all along the way. We wanted our sessions to end in jaw-dropping cliffhangers, so we would spend the week speculating in expectation what would come next. And that's exactly what happened. We all had a blast. The players loved the campaign and took their characters into wild directions. But a question remained. What were the secret instructions for an outstanding D&D campaign that were missing in the official rulebooks? What were the elements that were missing in published campaigns that we were able to find? What was the secret sauce that took our sessions to an even greater level of entertainment than the movies and TV shows and books we loved? In other words, how did the magic happen? That's when I put together a bunch of keywords that I thought were relevant in a D&D campaign to hook me in, and that I would not find in a typical published D&D campaign. Conflict, doubt, surprise, solace, accomplishment, tragedy. The one common thing in all of them, their feelings. I punched some words into Google: dramatic impact, emotions, Greek tragedy, and a .pdf, just to make sure that I get back scientific articles and not blog posts. Boom! I stumbled straight into a 1918 article by a professor of dramatic arts at Princeton University called "The Function and the Dramatic Value of the Recognition Scene in Greek Tragedy." And thanks the gods for the internet for that. I got so excited when I started reading this article. The very same elements we had agreed to bring into our campaign and that we felt were missing in published campaigns were the ones highlighted in this article as the core dramatic elements for an exciting story. We had just found a way to translate those elements into our D&D campaign. What does Netflix and ancient Greece have in common? It turns out that the same storytelling elements that make us enjoy stories since ancient Greek tragedies up to modern Netflix series are the same elements that, when applied to role-playing games storytelling, make the magic happen. Outstanding characters and outstanding stories. But those elements are almost never really applied in published campaigns, nor they are discussed in D&D rulebooks. And no wonder. They're not easily translated into D&D. After all, it's an open world with a story with an open end. They demand discussion, preparation, and a certain degree of effort from your D&D group. They may be hard for a DM unfamiliar to RPG dynamics to grasp. None of us in our D&D group had a major in literature. We were just a bunch of friends who loved role-playing and storytelling and who were trying to make those elements come alive in our campaign. We were exploring, we were allowing ourselves to try new things, and we were certainly moving along a track with unsure footing. And yet, we seemed to have nailed it. If we were insecure whether we were going towards a meaningful direction, this article on dramatic arts we had found gave theoretical validation to our thoughts and gave us the confidence we needed to go all in. We managed to translate these great storytelling elements to our D&D campaign, and the results were so rewarding. So let's talk about them. What are the core elements of a great D&D campaign story? 3 core elements drive audience immersion and emotionality into a story: sympathy, suspense, and surprise. Sympathy for the characters means there is an understanding, a common feeling between the audience, the players, and their characters, as well as their goals and motivations. Suspense is the feeling of expectation or uncertainty about what may happen next in a story. Surprise is a plot twist, which is by nature unexpected or unlikely, but must be logical. A D&D adventure is a very particular kind of story, and translating those core elements to its structure demands a bit of thought and preparation. In our next video, we'll dig deeper into what are those core elements and how they may be translated into a D&D campaign. We talked about a lot of things, so let's try to wrap it up. We believe that many players who value role-playing and storytelling at the core of a D&D campaign feel that both rulebooks and published campaigns fail to better deliver what is key in any great story in any other media: emotionality. Emotionality drives player immersion, engagement, and excitement, but it's not easy to translate to an open world and open-end gameplay environment such as D&D. That's what made us create our own approach to try and reach that emotionality. We started by establishing 4 clear directions for our homebrew campaign. 1, we wanted a low fantasy game whose antagonists would emerge from a power struggle and not a good versus evil trope, which we believed would allow us to build up tension in our campaign. 2, we wanted our character backstories to be entangled with the campaign plots. So we first built the characters to create plots starting from their backstories. 3, we built numerous NPCs that had relationships with our characters so they could come and go multiple times along the campaign, providing exciting role-playing and character development opportunities. 4, we agreed our campaign would be as unpredictable as possible and assigned our DM as the responsible for delivering those plot twists. It all worked so well for us that it propelled us to dig deeper into storytelling techniques and in better structuring our own framework. We were much excited to find our own approach was backed by a classical approach that considered sympathy, suspense, and surprise as the 3 core elements for outstanding storytelling. We learned so much in this process, and it elevated our gameplay experience to such a level that we felt compelled to share what we learned. If you like this video, you may want to check out other videos in our series on how to create outstanding D&D stories. All videos from this series, along with others, are available in our YouTube channel. Make sure you also follow us in our social networks. You may find all links in the description below. This is the first video of this series. The next video is how to write good role-playing and storytelling moments for your D&D campaign, in which we'll talk about how to use sympathy, suspense, and surprise to build great D&D adventures. If you think it might be interesting for you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click the bell to receive notifications for new content. In this series, we discuss what we believe to be the core elements of an outstanding D&D campaign for players who enjoy role-playing and storytelling, great characters and great stories. In the Great Character videos, we talk about the importance of backstories, allies, bringing the party together, and how to connect all of that to an outstanding D&D campaign. In the Great Stories videos, we discuss topics such as building up tension and suspense, plot lines, plot twists, villains and patrons, as well as advanced storytelling techniques. And yet, the best way to create great adventures is getting inspiration from great ideas. So be sure to share your great ideas and experiences in the comments down below. What was the best D&D campaign you've ever made part of? And why was it so good? I'm sure your experience will inspire not only us, but many others. Thank you for sharing this moment with us. We are the Deep Dice Press.